In this lesson, we're going to be learning about the payments ecosystem and what it actually takes to buy a cup of coffee from your favorite coffee shop. Before we dig into buying a coffee, let's talk about the different pieces of the payment ecosystem. In order for any transaction to happen, you need to have a buyer and a seller. The buyer will have some sort of payment instrument like a credit card or a debit card, and the seller will have a way to be able to accept that payment with some sort of device. But let's first of all talk about the buyer. The buyer will need to have a card that's actually issued by an issuing bank. So with me here, I've got my Charles Schwab Visa debit card that I received from Charles Schwab Bank. It's a Visa card, and it's linked to my checking account. I also have with me here my Chase Sapphire Preferred card, which is a credit card, and it's a Visa that's issued by Chase Bank. And I use this card a lot when I'm traveling internationally. I have my branch MasterCard debit card, which is linked to my zero fees checking account over at branch. This card is actually issued by Evolve Bank and Trust. I can use any of these cards to buy my coffee at the coffee shop. The coffee shop doesn't care if it's a credit card or a debit card. And at the coffee shop, I can either use the chip here, or I can use the magnetic stripe on the back, or what I can do is I can actually tap to pay if you see a symbol like that on your card. In addition to being able to use my cards, I can actually also use my phone to be able to pay with Apple Pay. So you see my branch card is loaded in there, and I can use this to tap to pay. The role of the issuing bank is to issue a card to the buyer, and they also are underwriting the buyer by giving them some sort of checking account or some sort of line of credit. But for all this to actually work, the bank actually needs what's called an issuer processor. And the issuer processor actually is the piece of technology that allows you to send data back and forth between the card networks, be it Visa or MasterCard or Discover Amex, and also the issuing bank. Now let's talk a little bit about the merchant or the seller. So in our case, it's a coffee shop. So at most coffee shops, you'll have a way to be able to accept a card. So here's an example of a Square terminal that could be used to accept payment from the buyer. So as you can see on the side here, you can actually swipe a card to accept a payment, or you can dip it by inserting it into the bottom here by using the EMV chip. Or you can also tap the card or tap the phone on this device to be able to actually accept the payment. Much like the issuing bank, the acquiring bank actually has what's referred to as an acquirer processor. And the acquirer processor links the merchant, the acquiring bank, and the network, be it Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or Amex, to be able to complete the transaction. And so they have a piece of hardware that actually allows them to connect. And that's what's referred to as the acquirer processor. And finally, at the heart of it all is the card network, or sometimes referred to as the card scheme. The example of this is Visa or MasterCard, Discover, or American Express. The card networks actually connect the buyer and the seller and sit right in the middle, and they allow the acquirer and the issuer to talk to each other. And we're going to discuss that more by going through another example.